Today, we're going to look at something fascinating: AI in the cockpit. We'll explore how Europe is taking on the huge challenge of regulating, well, flying robots. And just so you know, this analysis is based on a commentary prepared under the scientific supervision of Professor Vihar Kiskinov.
So it all boils down to one massive question, right? How exactly do you regulate artificial intelligence at 30,000 feet? This really gets to the heart of the matter. You're trying to merge the lightning-fast, ever-changing world of AI with the incredibly meticulous, safety-first culture of aviation. It's a huge task.
All right, to unpack all of this, we're going to walk through 6 key areas. First, we'll dive into that fundamental tension between AI and aviation safety. Then, we'll look at the clever legal bridge the EU has built. We'll explore the two very different regulatory worlds being connected, and then get into the nitty-gritty of the new rulebook for high-risk AI. After that, we'll see what this actually means in the real world, from the cockpit to the ground. And finally, we'll ask the big question: is this about to become the new global standard?
Okay, first up, AI meets aviation safety. This is all about that core conflict between AI's promise to make everything faster and more efficient and aviation's absolute, non-negotiable obsession with safety. You see, the European Union's goal here is a massive balancing act. The real challenge is to harness all that incredible potential of AI. We're talking smarter air traffic control, predictive maintenance, more efficient flight paths, you name it, while putting some serious ironclad guardrails around its risks. Because in aviation, there is just zero room for error.
So how do you solve a puzzle like that? Well, the answer lies in building what you can think of as a legal bridge. And the specific tool for the job? That would be Article 108 of the brand new EU AI Act.
The key phrase to remember here is bridging provision. Instead of creating a whole new separate agency just for AI and aviation, which would be complicated, the EU did something much smarter. Article 108 acts as that bridge, connecting the broad new AI law directly into the existing, expert-driven world of aviation safety regulation. It leverages the deep technical knowledge of the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, or EASA.
And you know, this wasn't some last-minute idea they came up with. This bridging strategy was the plan all along. From the Commission's very first proposal back in 2021, through all the debates in the Council and Parliament, right up to the final law in 2024, every major EU institution agreed: integrate, don't duplicate. Let's build on the expertise we already have.
Now, to really get why this bridge is so important, we need to look at the two very different worlds it's connecting. And that brings us to our third section: two worlds of regulation.
So, on one side, you have the EASA Basic Regulation. Think of this as vertical. It's incredibly deep and super specific, focused purely on aviation safety. But then, on the other side, you've got the EU AI Act, which is horizontal. It applies broadly across all sectors, from banking to healthcare, and it uses a risk-based approach. What Article 108 does is it forces these two totally different philosophies to speak the same language.
So what new rules are actually coming across this bridge? That takes us to Section 4, the High-Risk AI Rulebook. This lays out all the new demands for any AI that's used in aviation.
And here's the trigger. It all comes down to this term: safety component. If an AI system is considered a safety component, which means its failure could endanger people or the aircraft itself, then it's automatically classified as high risk. And listen, this isn't just about the autopilot. It could be an AI that predicts engine failure or a system that helps manage air traffic. If it's critical to safety, it's in.
And once an AI gets that high-risk label, this entire rulebook gets thrown at it. And this introduces some really new concepts into aviation. For instance, data governance, making sure the AI is trained on top-quality, unbiased data. Or human oversight, which guarantees that a person can always monitor and override the system. And then there's record keeping, which basically creates a black box so you can trace the AI's decisions.
Okay, this isn't just theory. Let's talk about the real-world impact, from the cockpit all the way down to the ground.
This new mandate specifically targets 3 key areas. First, the airworthiness of traditional manned aircraft. Second, the incredibly complex world of air traffic management. And third, the rapidly growing field of unmanned aircraft, drones.
So what does that actually look like? Well, let's take some examples. For a new passenger jet, any AI-driven flight controls have to meet those strict new data quality rules. For air traffic controllers, if they have an AI tool that alerts them to potential collisions, that tool has to be totally transparent about why it's flagging a problem. And for an autonomous delivery drone, it has to prove its AI is robust enough to handle errors and can't be hacked.
Okay, for our last section, let's zoom out. What does this European law mean for the rest of the world? This brings us to the really big question. Is this a new global standard in the making?
To understand what's happening, you need to know about something called the Brussels effect. It's this idea that because the EU is such a massive and valuable market, its regulations often end up becoming the default standard for the entire world, whether they mean to or not.
And why does this matter so much for aviation AI? Simple. Aviation is a global business. If a manufacturer in the US or Brazil or China wants to sell their planes or their drones in Europe, they now have to play by these AI rules. So, this effectively exports the EU's model for trustworthy AI all over the globe. And you can bet that other major regulators like the FAA in the US are watching this very, very closely.
And there's a hard deadline for this, August 2027. By that date, all high-risk AI systems in aviation have to be in full compliance. So yeah, the clock is definitely ticking for the entire global aerospace industry.
So we're left with a pretty fascinating question to think about. By setting the first really comprehensive rulebook for this stuff, has the EU basically ensured that every AI in the sky, no matter where it's built, will soon, well, speak with a European accent? It's a perfect example of the Brussels effect in action.